Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited to see everybody. We have people joining in, and we'll give it just another minute or two. But thank you guys. Did you guys enjoy that music? I love that song. I'm happy. I'm happy. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And Emilio, if you could just make sure I can see that other screen going here. And welcome. What I wanted to be able to see is in the chat, I want everybody to tell me two things. So I want you to say, where are you from? Are you from Dallas? Are you from Kansas City? Are you from someplace outside of the US? So let's see all that chat going. And then I also want to know kind of what topics are you interested in? And so let's get that chat going. And so welcome, welcome. It is my first time to do this. And I will gotta tell you guys, I know for some of you that know me well, this is definitely a little bit out of my comfort zone, but you know, I practice what I preach because I want to make sure that I am growing and learning and pushing myself, just like I tell you guys in my content. But what I want to do next is actually, let's see, oh great, thank you Emilio. And this, by the way, takes a village. I am in the studio. Sometimes you guys might have seen me do news interviews, but I've got Harrison helping me, I've got Emilio back in the producer room, and so now I can see all of your chat. So I'm excited. So I've got Daniel, happy theme of today, I love that. Kansas City, hi Sherry. OKC, Chris, good to see you. Scott Lovejoy, Dallas, love it, love it. But I wanted to actually just give you a little bit, when I was looking at the attendee list for today, I realized that there were so many people that are kind of new and out of my LinkedIn network. And so what I wanted to be able to do is actually just start with a little bit of background about who I am and why I love what I do. So let's get started. So the first thing I just wanted to tell you a little bit about is who I am. So I'm Lisa, but I grew up in Houston, Texas. I'm a native Texan. Today I'm in Dallas, but I was the youngest of 3 children. And I was a competitive ice skater. So you can see that picture of my sister and I. But then the other thing is I love to paint. I love to draw. So those are just a couple of examples of my paintings. And then I actually do have 3 children, and you can see how different, they're all grown up now. But many of you, maybe if you have young children, it's definitely hard to balance all of those things, the work life, the family life. But I feel very proud of my children, and those, my family, my husband is really, really what gives me joy. But I wanted to tell you just a little bit more about me. If you can't, and Scott Lovejoy, love that rowing, and this is White Rock Lake in Dallas, Texas. And that is me in the front of the boat right here. And the cool thing about rowing, my daughter is actually steering the boat right there. So if I'm not working, not hanging out with my family, I am actually on the lake rowing. Now let's also just keep going in. Tell me if you're just getting in. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what questions you have. The other thing that would be awesome, if you guys can put in the chat, I would love to know kind of what industry. I have tech people, I have finance people, I have restaurant people. I am so excited that there's so much passion. We all need a little bit of joy. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if who needs a little bit more joy. Let's see all those thumbs up in the chat. All right, let's see them going here. All right, let's go, let's go. And today, it's gonna be not your average webinar. I want you guys to use that chat. I wanna feel your energy back at me. And then we're gonna spend some time looking at your questions and the topics. But let's talk a little bit about my corporate background. So I actually started at an advertising agency, and then I moved on to Frito Lay, where I was consumer insights, and then I moved into Chili's and Brinker as the head of innovation. I have to tell you a quick story. From when I was in the advertising world, this is kind of cringe. I had a boss tell me I smiled too much. What? So I am so glad that I have found my joy, found my voice, and I love smiling, right? So it's all good. But then in my consulting business, I actually have a lot of different business sectors. Many of you know me from the restaurant world, but did you know I also work in financial services and healthcare, retail, just to name a few. And so it's not just about the restaurant world, although that is very near and dear to my heart. But let's get started on why you guys are here today, right? So let's take a look. Okay, I know this is March of 2025, but I have to tell you my origin story. And how did I even get to here, this moment, having a book, all of these things? Well, it started in 2020. We want to forget, and I promise not to talk too much about it. But do you remember all of those things about flatten the curve? We were asked to stay home, and the joy that was around us, going out to eat, going to movies, even going to church, all of these things were taken away from us. So as a consumer researcher, literally that's what I do. So in my whole corporate life, it's all about asking the questions, getting the data, getting the insights to help grow. So as a researcher, a global pandemic, I put my research hat on, and I had this aha moment. And I want to make sure you catch this, because this is one of the most important things to think about, is that when joy is greater than fear, economic growth and recovery begin. Now the fear changes, the fear absolutely changes. We're 5 years past the pandemic, but the fears and the anxiety change, and I know that we need more joy. Type in the chat here, is this something that resonates with you guys? This idea of when joy is greater than fear, economic growth begins. How does that make you feel? Good, I see that, always makes sense. Thank you, Mac. Yes, I love that. So I want to explain to you, in March of 2020, literally March 20th, in the middle of a global pandemic, I'm like, I have an idea. I'm going to start measuring joy in the middle of a global pandemic. Everybody thought I was nuts. But let me tell you, because many maybe not know that the actual survey is 30 different business verticals. I have 60 restaurant brands, 20 plus retail brands. And today I collect 1,000 surveys every month. And what you're gonna see today is data from last week. How cool is that? But then let me just tell you this quick journey. When we look at the data, I started collecting this data, it was actually every week. Back in the beginning, wow, can't even believe it. 1,000 surveys every week back in 2020 for about the first 6 months. But guess what happened? In 2021, this data became a leading indicator of the recovery, not just for restaurants, but retail and overall. So my data started getting featured in all of these publications. In 2022, many of you maybe put a plus mark in. Who has seen me present at a conference? Has anybody seen me present? Let's put plus, 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 if you've seen me at a conference. So I started doing more of those. And then in 2023, I had people, Betty Garrett, several people, Starlett Johnson, Sherry Landry, they're like, Lisa, you need to write a book. I've never written a book, but that's how I again, this journey continues. 2024, we have a podcast where I interview CEOs, and it's just so exciting to learn from them. So here's the why are we here. I'm gonna share all of this data, but what I wanna talk about is the what's next in 2025 for you guys, is we're gonna talk about how you can learn more in a monthly and quarterly deep dives. There's gonna be opportunity for you to dig into this data set. And then also, we are going to give you an opportunity to add questions to the survey. And spoiler alert, we want to make sure that you stay to the very end, because one of you, I cannot wait to see who it is, you have to be here, one of you is going to actually win and put survey questions in my survey. So you get to pick the questions, I collect 1,000 surveys, and that's on me for showing up and bringing your joy. Who's excited about that? Who wants to win that one? Okay, you gotta stay to the very end. Gotta stay to the very end. All right, so because I'm all about joy, I wanna do a giveaway. So you guys might have seen in my LinkedIn post or other social media, I love sharing joy. So for our very first surprise joy of the day, Harrison is going to give me a drawing from those of you that are attending, and guess what you guys are gonna get? Whoever I get to see, I'm gonna send you guys a care package of joy, which is a book plus some postcards and those famous Invest in Joy stickers. And the winner is, Harrison's gonna come give me that name. You gotta wave, Harrison, wave. Oh. Very good. Okay, so let's see who it is. Oh my God, this is awesome. Okay, Don Helms, my buddy from Frito Lay days. We are gonna be sending you that joy book. So let's hear some applause. Everybody do your applause in the chat. Go Don, go. I love that, so more to come on that. Okay, so let's dig in. The one thing I wanna set up as a consumer researcher, this is another one of those, did you catch this? Because literally, we are gonna be talking about this the entire time. It's this idea of to see what others see. How many of you have free data just busting out that you see data all the time? We get emails with data all the time, but it's hard to know what's true. And so I want you to think about research is what we see, but I'm gonna challenge you to think differently than what everybody else does. And that, my friends, is where the magic happens to how you use consumer insights to actually change your business trajectory. I'm so excited. All right, so these are the topics that we're gonna cover today. Oops, see, a little too fast. So we're gonna have the consumer, I'm gonna tell a little bit about the employees, and then we're gonna spend some time about the so what, now what. Now, you guys are doing so great in this chat. I love Emily, great. Gigi, love it. Kay, great stuff, wonderful. So keep giving me that feedback. I wanna feel your energy. But we're gonna cover some consumer data, got a lot of that. And then we'll touch on the employee, and then I wanna make sure we get enough time to get to some of your questions in the so what, now what. All right? So let's go. My first quiz. Now, I want everybody to think of a number in their head. This is survey data from last week. And I want you to say what % of Americans 18 plus years old have actually say they're fully back to all of their activities since before the pandemic. So let's see, 40%, 80%, 50%. Woo, you guys are doing great. 62, 55. All right, 55, 60, 95. Okay, in research, this is what we call a bell curve, where we have highs and lows. But here's the answer. Okay, type in the chat, what's your response to that? 56, good, bad, wow? I see a lot of wows. Wow is right. Now, because I am the glass half full, and Amelia, let's go back to, there we go. I wanna see you guys. So what does this mean? So if only 56% are back to their full activities, you're like, wow, right? But to see the research, to see the data and think what others don't. This means there's massive pent-up demand left. Do you remember that word? Pent-up demand. So we have to look at data differently. Who wants to unlock growth through unlocking the pent-up demand? Say yes, right? Yes, yes, yes. I want to see lots of yeses. That is why joy matters, because we are missing a lot of joy. But there is massive, massive, massive pent-up demand. We just have to unlock it. That should give us a good high five moment for today. But guess what? Are you guys feeling a little bit of the tension right at this moment? I'm gonna unpack that for you guys, and let's see kind of what the data is telling us. So I am calling this idea the unintended shifts. And Amelia, if we could make the camera, we're missing a little bit. See, this is the real time, the behind the scenes. The top of the slide's not showing a little bit, so we can adjust that so everybody can see. Real-time feedback, guys. What I want to here is, where are we from an overall standpoint? Basically, we have this idea is caution, but people are moving forward. In the middle, we have all of this financial, economic, rising fear, emotional undercurrents, and that is true. And this is actually what you tend to hear on the news, in the media, this is what we hear. And it creates a negative overstory, not only for ourselves, but it creates overstory for consumers and their behaviors. So what we have to do is understand that there are people, there all that pent-up demand, and they need you and your businesses to help bring back the joy and the hope. So we don't want to get caught in this valley here. So let's look more at some of the specific data. From a foundation perspective, I'm going to show you the bookends. People feel safe in their neighborhoods. Doesn't that feel weird based on what you see in the news? Well, it's the truth. Most people do feel safe. The other thing that's actually increasing is having a strong faith is actually something that we're seeing. On the other side, see these bookends? The American dream is still alive. Now, not surprising, it's very polarized. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this is one too, for many of you, that consumers prefer experiences over items. So how are you delivering experiences? So these are the bookends, but I can't avoid kind of the topic in the middle with all these financial situations. So let's dig into some of those. Okay, so let's see. 52% of consumers are saying that they're living paycheck to paycheck. That is heart-wrenching. The thing that's heart-wrenching is that is up 6 points versus this time a year ago. So that tension in the middle is real from a financial standpoint, but even those that are struggling financially, they're looking to find those moments of joy in their lives. And you can ask yourself, how can you actually provide that for them? Now, we hear this a lot too. I want you guys to put in the chat, what percent of Americans last week, said that they wanted to live elsewhere. And the two parts to that is live in a different state and live in a different country. So what percent? So I see 20%, 45%, 60, 80. Hi, Greer, Kristen. I see 10%. Wow, again, this is that bell curve of data. So let's see what the numbers are. 50%. So what is your reaction to that? 50%. Is that surprising? Not surprising? Wow, wow, wow. Half of America would rather live someplace else. Now, I have to break it down. 30% want to live in a different state. 20% want to live in a different country. And given the political situation, the political divide we have, obviously those that are more on the left are more out of the country by 2x than those that are on the right now. So there is a massive feeling of that, remember that middle tension that's going on. But again, I'm going to give you the answers of how to get through all that and navigate. Now, Harrison just reminded me, we are going to give away one more book. And so thank you, Harrison. You really need a team. All right. I love this. Are y'all loving the surprises? Okay, hope so. All right. So we have Flor Palacios. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. So Flor, let's give a shout out. Let's give a shout out to Flor. Whoop, book on your way. Awesome. Got to have some fun here. I do want to show you that we do have these cards and these little joy packets. I don't know if you can see, but it says invest in joy, a little postcard. So in the little joy packets, you'll get some of those too. Woohoo, fun. All right. Now, let's get to the heart of the economy. During the pandemic, I actually created this attitudinal framework about the fear and anxiety around COVID. And what I've done is I've adapted that 2 years ago to the economy. And let me explain it. So basically, we were asking consumers, are you spending as usual? And so as of last week, 20% said I'm spending as usual. On the other side here, we have 1 in 4 that are saying that they're not spending. They paused, they're very anxious about the economy, so they paused. This is what I call the share of wallet game here, because this big group in the middle, they are think about the share of wallet. You've got to be the selected, considered brand to win this. But what I find is the economic, write this one down, attitudes lead behaviors. Another, did you catch that moment? attitudes lead behaviors. When this number is high, that is not good for the economy, okay? So what I want to show you, though, is it's not a one-size-fits-all. So when I look at the highs here, basically, I feel like a weather person, Harrison. We didn't talk about that. Literally, I feel like the weather guy. So when you see the high, that means 38%. There is a population that is 38%. So they're almost 2x the average. Over on this side, though, we actually have 47%. So we have some groups that are highly anxious. And our lows, so we have a big gap. So that expression average is awful. When you see free data out there, it's usually the average of total US. And do you want to make decisions on average is awful data? No, you need to really understand and dig into it. Now the trick here is we want to understand how has this changed over time. This is my worst eye chart, okay, so bear with me. And maybe some of you guys have seen this on LinkedIn or the chart of the week. What we're looking at is the line, the green, that I showed you before. And so today, you know, we're at that 20%. And then the red is, all the way over here, is the 38%. This started in 2023, so about 2 years ago, 2024, and then now 2025. So I basically have 2 years of data. And you're looking like, wow, it's kind of squiggly all over the place. Well, what happens is when we have these large gaps, this is when business tended to get soft. My data tends to be 1 month ahead of consumer behaviors. Attitudes lead behaviors, right? So here we have the largest gap, 18-point gap, that we have seen since I started that. So if your business is feeling the pinch right now, this is why. We had some other inflection points right before the election in June, and then you can see where the gaps are kind of big. And the data lines up with the economy. Now my data is different than the consumer price index and the consumer sentiment because mine is about attitudes and behaviors linked together. So I hope that's interesting. Thoughts on this? So 20% are spending more and then 38% spending not. And then the yellow is in the middle. But average is awful, so let's look at the difference. Okay, I was a political science major, so during all of this past few, year or whatever, I did start looking at the political data. Now let me explain what we're looking at here. The same lines that I showed you before, the green and the red, but now I'm looking at it by political affiliation. I want to show you a couple things. In 2023, the gaps between the lines were not that great on the still spending. Does that make sense to you guys? Put a yes in the chat. So 2023, it was pretty equal. 2024, we started seeing massive gaps on the still spending. These are the people that are out there spending as usual. The election happened, and then look what happens. So if you lean to the right, Republican, your data is actually kind of flat right now, but then it basically flipped. So again, if you're feeling the pinch, this is what's happening. Now, on this side, it's also very interesting. So 2023 was kind of close. 2024, you start seeing the gap. But look what happened here. Since the election, the blue anxiousness has gone really high. But what we're also seeing is even just post-election, even the Republicans, the fear is growing a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to navigate through all this uncertainty. But I feel like it's very important for you to see the facts, okay? And I was geeking out on the political data throughout this last election cycle. So let's look at it by different demographic groups. So again, we're seeing the totals here. Oh, sorry, on that side, sorry. And then what we have here is in the middle is income. So lower income people, very big gap. Higher income people, not so big of a gap. This is very important, the next one. Raise your hand if women and females, moms are important to your business. Say yes, 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 or thumbs up. That moms are important to my business. Moms are important. Right now, moms are not feeling too good. And moms make a lot of decisions. Now, I could have shown you the female-male. It's pretty similar. but it was more dramatic for men versus women, dads versus moms. So this is why I said that, or included it. We also see massive gaps in ethnicity, and then we also see gaps in Gen Z. So that idea of average is awful, please write that down. Whenever you see data, you do not want to just take it at surface. You can make wrong decisions, okay? So very important. The other unintended shift of the pandemic, this just pains me. 35% of Americans last week, and Harrison added this question, it was an awesome one that we added, is 35% say they have fewer friends in the pandemic. Only 15% have more friends. And that is tragic because we are meant to connect with people. But because average is awful, I want to show you the details. So who is actually growing in friends? Dads. So almost, it's over 2x. So dads are out there, and then moms maybe are at home. You know, maybe they're doing things with their friends or things like that, but this is a stark difference. And then Gen Z, it's very, very good news that Gen Z is actually making more friends. Now, they also are very lonely, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it's fascinating to see how making friends is really important, and coming out of it, the pandemic. And then fewer friends, millennials. Again, another moment to make sure you jot this down. Millennials are really toughly navigating through this post-pandemic world. Moms, the under 50,000, and even Hispanics. So those are the populations that are telling us, they need our help to make more connections, to find the joy. So what's happening is not only do they have maybe a lot of people don't have new friends, but holistically, they're craving more social connections. Not as many friends, but what it's screaming is I need more connection. I need more social activities. And maybe that's what your business can help them with. But guess what? It's really expensive. And this data has not changed. This data, again, is just from last week. But this data, it's just so expensive to go out right now. And so that's really hindering it. And then one of my favorite lines that I always tell, raise your hand if you've been to a restaurant, a movie, a retail outlet, someplace where there's service. Just put a plus in the chat to say, I've had inconsistent experience. So chat plus. If I've been to, I've had sticker shock, my service was low, I couldn't find somebody that I needed. You know, and then you see these things online, and it's like we're just not, as brands, we're not delivering on the experience. So that pent-up demand, when I said there's pent-up demand available, it's because they don't trust our experience to be worth it. And so what we have to do is, it's not that joyful anymore. Now here's where I usually would do a little dance for you and say, how do we make it worth it? But it's just, we know it cannot be that joyful out there. I see lots of pluses, like it's just not that joyful. So it's not that people don't want to go out. Another moment to write down. It's not that people don't want to go out, it's that it's not joyful. That's in our control to deliver experiences that are exceptional. So this chart my favorite thing is Baby I'm Worth It, that Fifth Dimension or Fifth Harmony song. But I want to show you across the different activities that we measure. 5 on a 5-point scale. Here is what the consumers are saying from last week. Is it definitely worth it? So bars down at 25%, restaurants at 33%, concerts at 41%. During the Taylor Swift, that number was in the 50s, and now it's dropped down. Concerts being worth it has dropped down. College sports, that actually was a lot higher during football season. So I think Lauren, hi Lauren, if you're out there, that number was way higher. So then we have over here, theme parks and domestic vacations. It is spring break. So guess what? What it's saying, 5 on a 5-point scale, the people that have been out there doing their spring breaks, it's way worth it. So that's a good thing. So that is really good. Any thoughts, surprises, questions? Put in the chat here. Is this surprising to you? The fact that in restaurants, only 33 give it a 5 on a 5-point scale. invite yourself to think about how research is, what people see, and we think about it differently. How do you think the other 67% feel if it's not worth it? Do you think they're going to come back if it's not worth it? How does that impact your frequency at restaurants? And it goes the same for all of these, a spa, facial. So it is really important to, when you're looking at your own data, maybe you have guest satisfaction data, make sure that you're pushing hard enough to deliver experiences that are worth it. All right, so before we move into this, I just want you guys to chat. Tell me what stood out to you guys. Let's just do it really quickly. What stood out of this consumer data? I showed you the anxiousness. I showed you the it's worth it. We talked about ways to unlock pent-up demand. So type in the chat here. Let me see what's kind of sticking so far. Okay, what stood out? What stood out? The biggest gap between spending and not. Is it worth it? Was it worth it? I love that. All right. So let's move on. Thank you. Don't trust. Yes, don't trust average. Thank you. Don't trust the average. Okay, we'll keep on those things because then we'll make sure that we get it. Okay, so now we're going to move into the extremely satisfied with their job. So I keep you guys on your toes. So from last week, across all cohorts, what is the 5 on a 5-point scale that I'm extremely satisfied? What percent? Let's chat, put it in the chat. What percent are very satisfied? Okay, 20, 25, 30. Okay, pretty close. I see 50. All right, 50. Daniel, I love your optimism. All right, Katie, 35. Okay, so thank you guys for chiming in on that. So it's actually 25%, oh, 24%, excuse me. So it's actually not that good, again. So that means the other, 76% are not happy. And so they're looking for the job. But I just added, for fun, I want to just say, okay, so tech workers, this is literally hot off the press data. So tech workers, because there's so much talk about AI, are tech workers higher or lower? Just type higher or lower in the chat. Is their job satisfaction higher or lower? So I have higher, lower, lower. Hi, Susan. Lower, lower, lower. Greer, Mike, lower. All right, so guess what? Tech is 36%, so it's actually way higher. They're having way more fun at their job. So then I want to say, so there you go. Kind of, again, that wow factor. Average is awful, so tech workers are actually happy. Now, I do want to ask, okay, the Northeast. Is the Northeast higher or lower than 24%? Because we can cut this data by region, by demographics, by jobs. We have all these different business verticals, hospitality workers, educators, things like that. So lower, lower, I see one higher, lower, lower, coldish. Love that. So the Northeast is actually 17%. So it's 7 points lower in the Northeast. Job satisfaction is that much lower. So again, we can actually cut all this data by job, what kind of jobs you have, the demographics, the region. Because you don't run your business as just this one big US cohort, right? You have businesses that you need to cut and slice the data more granularly. So the other thing I want to just talk briefly before we get into kind of the big meat is this whole return to the office. My data shows that people that come back 5 days are actually happier. So that song in the beginning, be happy. If you're in the office 5 days a week, you actually report being more happy than if you're only in 1 or 2 days a week. So if you're kind of struggling with this idea of, does my team come back full time or not, it actually is good for our psyche and our soul and our social connections to be in the office. So don't shy away from that. It doesn't have to be a mandate. Just remind people why it's a good thing to be in the office. So the next point, which is also one of my most important points, there's so many, I wish we had more time today, but when I think about retention, put a plus in the chat to say, do you use that word in your company? Retention, put a plus if you use the word retention in your, so definitely, we got that, definitely. I will tell you, one of your action items for today is stop using that word. Here's why. When we actually have the word retention, It actually is to retain something. It's to put a wall around something. Consumers and employees don't want to be retained. That is a place of fear. I want to hold you back. Does that sound something that you want? So we need a new word. I'm open, if I have any HR people, I'm still looking for a new word on this. But the opposite is freedom. They want to know what their future is. And so we have to stop using a word that is grounded in fear and holding somebody back. We talk about culture and we talk about all these things, but what they are craving is social connections, having a place that I can grow, having a place that I feel valued. That's not about retaining, that's about enabling growth. So that is a very important construct for today. And I want to challenge you guys, make every day feel like a grand opening. Whether you're in the retail world or you are in the restaurant world, no matter what business you are in, the grand opening is actually one of the most joyful moments. The energy is high, and we've got to remind your employees why whatever industry you're in is the best place in the world. So do you have your passion and your energy for your industry? You have to share it with everybody else. Does this make sense? Is this a good idea about changing retention? Just put like a plus or thumbs up or yeah, this is good. Because otherwise we're commoditizing our industries, and no wonder people are leaving in droves. So, but we have to say it's not normal. It's not just the way it is. We can control this destiny and change through the way we live our lives through a filter of joy. So now, okay, I'm gonna just ask you guys one more quick question before we say. What stood out, that section was super short. I have so much cool data. I could do a whole hour just on workforce and the future of work. We have so much data. But what stood out to you in this section? Job satisfaction, the regionality, the differences, the fact that the word retention comes from fear, the idea of happiness at work, in office. So retention, what stood out? So put in the chat, what stood out? Retention, retention sex, I love that. Looks like employees are dissatisfied, so no surprise. Retention and job satisfaction, happier, good. I just want to make sure that all of these insights make sense. Because remember that bookends, we're living in this world of, we have all this fear going on, but we've got to look at the data differently to unlock the growth, okay? So very good, thank you. Happier with 5 days back at the office. Awesome. Whew, we're moving, aren't we? Awesome. So now I want to get into the last section of our conversation today. So I want to invite you to think about it. And this is, again, a write this down. This is a did you catch this moment. There is opportunity in uncertainty, okay? There's opportunity in uncertainty. In today's world, if you are waiting for certainty and stability, you will fail. Your company will fail. You will be not joyful. And so what we have to do is say, even through all this noise and uncertainty, there's opportunity. There are success stories of how people not just survived the pandemic, but they reinvented themselves to actually become something bigger and better than what they were before, okay? So we have to get out of this fear mindset and reframe it as uncertainty equals opportunity, okay? So I want to ask a question here, and how many of you, I got to just ask this, how many of you during the pandemic, I want you to put in the chat, how many of you had to change something on a dime in the middle of the pandemic, when the pandemic? Put in the chat, yes, yes, I had to change. Every day I had absolutely, yes, 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 yes. Yes, so we all lived through this craziness of reinventing. Now, I want to ask somebody now, the next question is, are you still moving at that speed today? So yes or no, are you still reinventing at the same speed at which your company or you individually succeeded? Go Mac, go, yes. So I see a couple of yeses, so Cindy, way to go. And so, but the reality of it is most of us are not, but we have the skill set, we have it. And so I want to show you this chart that your employees are maybe more ready for change than you are. 20% say every year, 43% or 44 every 3 years, 74% every 5 years. So let's go back to the wide angle, Emilio. So when we think about that, what does this mean? 20% of your employees are probably like, we need to go, let's go. And it actually is even higher for your younger employees. So what's holding you back? It's we've all gotten back into our rut of our daily, our to-do list. Put in the chat, plus. Is your to-do list too long? I know mine can be. So what we have to be able to do is get that passion and energy back for reinvention, because uncertainty is here to stay. There's not stability. And if you do not reinvent, and I'm talking really reinvent, we have to be able to do that. Now, oh my goodness, let me go back. So I want to invite you to think about something. Let me make sure I didn't miss a page. Yes, I did. Wow, I just went super fast, didn't I? So when we think about, this is how you can think about your business today. Products, concepts, and brands. So products, let me go back. We love this. You can tell this is, I'm definitely out of my comfort zone on some of this, so thank you. So when we think about this product, you have products, concepts, and brands. The product is obviously what you sell, the transaction. The concept is kind of a moment, and then the brand is why they should care. It's the relationship. But what's happening is, ask yourself, is your innovation around your product or your service? Or are you inventing enough to grow your brand? And so this is really an important concept to understand. And I will tell you that what's happening today is we are doing promotions, we're doing campaigns, but are we spending enough time to have an enduring brand? Or are we just, churning way over here, and we're not really building the brand? Because what can happen is we become commoditized. Our mindset today, and I want to see in this chat, do you agree with me on this? That our mindset today, we are tasked constantly, drive the business, drive conversion, get products out there. Do you guys agree with that? Like thumbs up, heart, whatever. But what's happening is that we're basically creating what's called the transaction, which if you look that up, it's an economic event. We're growing our business at the expense of growing our brands. So we're in this world of transactions, and that's why it's not that joyful out there. But there's opportunities for us as leaders who have these insights to go out and change the world through that lens of joy. So what's happening is, like I said, we are not growing our brands. We're growing our business and our products, but we're not growing our brands. We're driving that commoditization, and we're driving short-term results. But what is that going to be for next month, next year? Without the brand, we have nothing. Your brand can be commoditized with all the, delivery, convenience, all these things. So let's think about what is truly missing. And this is probably no spoiler alert here. I believe joy is the missing link. And when we want to connect relationships, bonds, people that shared interest, that's where magic happens. But it's not just soft and squishy, because as I told you at the front of the session today, this measuring joy drives the top line and it drives the bottom line. So if you go back to your teams and say, oh, I just went to the session on joy, and they're gonna be like, oh, it's kind of a self-help squishy thing. No, it actually drives your business. And so this is why joy matters. But I wanna go back to kind of where we started. We have kind of this trust issue, and that's where those bookends, and we saw that kind of fear in the middle. We have to get beyond that. But it's real, so we can't ignore it. But what has to happen is this trust issue, we have institutional trust. People aren't trusting the government. They're not trusting big companies. We know that there's social fragmentation anytime you open your social media. There's also economic divides. And then even tech and information overload. I've got all of this cool data on AI, so I think there were some AI people out there. Definitely just hit me up for that, because it's fascinating, some of this data that is happening on AI, kind of surprising. But we can't have joy without trust. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. There is no joy until you have trust. So as brands, as leaders, what can you do to build trust first? And then we find the joy. And then with no trust, there's no connections. So we have to have all of these things together. And I wanted to bring you guys something I'm playing around with. So you guys are the first to see this construct I'm going to show you. And I wanted to be able to figure out the difference about how many of you talk in your brands about building emotional connections, or, oh, we've got to work on our culture. Do you guys use that word, kind of like we did on retention? Yes, connection. I want to build connections. Who uses that word? Do you guys use that word? Yes, it looks like it. So, but the reality of it is do we have a formula? Do we know what that actually means? We have to build connections, but what do I go do about it? How do I do that? So this is the first time I've ever shown this, so you guys give me feedback if you like it or what could be better. But let me just talk about it. So we have these 5, I came up with this idea of 5 C's for connection to get to joy. So the first is care, which is kind of through training. And then the second is consistency, which is operational excellence. And then creativity, it goes back to that relentless innovation and reinvention. Not just a line extension, not just a new hamburger, but then what is that? And then comprehension, that is also understanding your consumers and your employees. And then last, convenience. Now, I put convenience purposefully at the bottom, because convenience, we are all, whose companies are obsessed with tech stacks and convenience and automation? Do a plus if that's relevant to you, that there's so much money being spent on tech stacks and convenience. And I'm not saying they are not good, but we can't be at the expense of what's at the top. And I always say, if there's HR people out there, it is your time to shine and being able to deliver that care. But it doesn't stop there. And Emilio, let's go ahead and change it back to the wide angle here. So what I want to be able to talk about is, if this makes sense, I want to show you how to take it further. So yeah, there you go, thank you. So I want to show you how to take it further, because if we think about this model, what I just showed you, and it was not meant to be a trick question or whatever, but that was also very much how we as business owners, business leaders, we think about it. It's based on those functions and those tasks that we do. But what I want to invite you to think about, it's not, this is also one of those write down moments, or make sure to catch this moment. This is not about what we are doing. We are running our businesses in transaction mode, which means we're focusing on outcomes. And we got to stop, because 5 years after this pandemic, we are in a world of hurt on transactional everything. So let's reframe that model. So care, the training is the enabler, but what we want to craft in your training is, what do you want them to feel? Because maybe in our training we do operational skills to say we need them to do X, Y, Z in that, but do you craft with intention the outcome of what you want your consumers to feel? Now, I will tell you, this goes for employees too. How do you want your employees to feel? It's not about checking the box and training. When it comes to consistency, why does that matter? Because you know what? When they say, where do you want to go tonight for dinner? I don't know, where do you go? Then they say, oh, well, food was cold, missing items, cost too much, service was slow. Boom, you're off the list. So the outcome of consistency is trust. And that is so powerful, because if they can't trust you, they will not choose you, regardless of what business industry you're in. Creativity. The creativity is this idea of, are they going to remember it? Because when it comes to those things that we can do to, bring hospitality to any industry, that's also a feeling, is will they get from the first impression to the last impression? And here's the next one, lasting impression. Did you guys catch that one? First impression, lasting to lasting. Sorry, first, last, lasting. The lasting is the memory that will get them back to the next visit or the next opportunity to do business with you. And then comprehension, it's what they value. Do you understand what really matters to them and what they value? Because if you don't, you're never going to get a connection, you're not going to get trust, and you're not going to deliver joy. So we have to refocus. And then convenience. Are we working on the things that we think they need on convenience or not? So that is where we have to change our thinking. So the last kind of things, and I'm actually, thank you, Harrison's back there giving me the 5 minutes, the 10 minutes, so we are actually doing great on time. I want to tell you guys, I know I went through a lot of information in just this 1 hour, but I want you to think about the couple of things. One is we've got to apply the same rigor to employee insights as we do our customer insights. Our employees are so critical. I would actually trade the consumer research to do deeper insight for your employees because it matters that much to build connections, trust, and joy, which is all about that next point. Can you lead with joy and get over that fear in the middle? Can you tune out all of that noise? And so the opportunity is in the uncertainty. And that is what I want to leave you guys with is, yes, it's kind of crazy out there. I get it. But if you refocus and rechannel your thoughts, your energy, your to-do lists, you will build the trust and connections and ultimately the journey back to joy. And so what I wanted to do is kind of share, because there's so many new people, and I'm so excited that we had so many people come today. But here's a QR code, and yes, we are going to be sending this out. I had a couple questions about it, but I want to actually ask you guys, help me help you. For those of you old enough to know that Jerry Maguire movie, give me a thumbs up on that. Who knows that movie? But help me help you. And I want to just show you all the different ways. So obviously I do custom research. That is the bread and butter of what I do. I work with brands all the time. I'll do keynotes and workshops. Please sign up for the chart of the week. You will get these insights in your inbox every single day, or every week, every Friday. Sorry, Harrison, not every day. And then please listen to the podcast. We have a lot of wonderful leaders, CEOs from different industries, Olympic athletes, and it's such a joy really to interview all of these leaders. But the big reveal is what's next for 2025. And I shared with you the beginning what I'm doing, and thank you guys for just lifting me up and giving me the passion and to continue this. I started this in 2020 not having any clue that it would take on the life that it has. But what I'm offering you guys is let's work together to mine these insights for you. And when you look on this link, click on the link, you'll be able to tell us what things that you would be interested in to learn more about how we could work together. And so I am so excited that we're going to do this. For those of you, I've got it on a slide coming up, but I do have a restaurant-specific one next week. But we have to do our drum roll. Oh my gosh, okay, next time we have automated drum roll sounds. Okay, note to self. We got the drum roll. So I want to say, so Harrison has been working behind the scenes for those of you that are still in attendance. So do you guys, who wants to see who wins the opportunity to put 3 questions that are for their eyes only, very important. These questions are for your eyes only. You get to come up with them and we'll work together and you'll get my time to understand what they mean and all that. Okay, so, Oh my God, this is so awesome. Kara Brickens. Oh my gosh, so Kara, I obviously you're still here. I am so excited. Kara, I will tell you a fun story about Kara. Kara is a speaker that I met last year, and she has an amazing story. So Kara, we might have to get you back on once we do this research. So I am so excited that Kara is going to be able to work with me on these questions. But what I'd like to just spend the last couple of minutes, oh, and here's the QR code for those of you that are interested in the restaurant. We have so much restaurant data that we're going to do the same type of thing to give you the insights that you need. But I want to pause. I think we have like 1 or 2 more minutes left. But what questions, and Harrison, are there questions that we can ask? Type in here, are there questions that what we think about, any questions that we want to go back to? Type in your questions, anybody, and we'll just do this. But I will tell you, it was a little nerve-wracking for me to do this because I haven't, but this has been so fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll definitely see. Harrison, are you seeing any? No? Okay. So good. Awesome. Well, I look forward to doing more of these, and definitely scan. Let me go back to the other QR code. So please scan this QR code and let us know how we can help you more. And for those of you that we'll see next week at the restaurant, let's keep bringing the joy, everybody. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Bye.